Arrival of the Queens. The sky over New York shimmered with a strange, unnatural light. It was early morning, but the sun's rays couldn't compete with the brilliance of the two massive starships that had appeared above the city, hovering silently yet ominously. One ship radiated an almost blinding golden glow, cutting through the clouds like a living sunbeam. The other was darker than midnight, shrouded in swirling shadows that seemed to twist and writhe on their own. Citizens on the streets stopped mid-step, shielding their eyes as an otherworldly hum reverberated through the air. From the golden ship descended Varela, queen of the Luminara, her armor gleaming like crystallized sunlight. Energy flared from her hands as her photon warriors streamed out behind her, shimmering figures armed with luminous weapons that hummed with raw power. She stepped onto the streets with a regal poise, scanning the city with eyes that glowed like molten gold. Her goal was clear: claim the Earth's energy reserves to restore her dying star, and she would not let anything stand in her way. From the shadowed ship emerged Krathina, queen of the Shadow Vrax, a towering figure cloaked in black energy that seemed to consume the very light around her. Her army of shadow beasts, creatures with twisting, jagged forms and glowing crimson eyes, spread across the streets, seeping into alleyways and subway tunnels. Krathina's voice echoed like rolling thunder, promising annihilation to anyone who resisted. Unlike Varela, her motive was conquest and dominion. She craved the chaos and fear she could harvest from humanity itself. Panic erupted. Cars screeched to a halt, and people ran for shelter as the two alien forces collided in a clash of light and shadow, their armies immediately engaging in combat. Buildings shook as photon warriors shot beams of concentrated light into the streets, while shadow beasts darted between debris, ripping through vehicles and throwing civilians into terror. The city that had seen superheroes, gang wars, and alien invasions before had never experienced anything of this scale. High above the chaos, Captain Marvel streaked across the sky, her energy aura blazing. Her eyes narrowed as she assessed the threat. "This isn't just an alien incursion," she muttered into her comms. "These queens, they're not just here to fight. They're here to destroy or dominate." She dove into the fray, firing concentrated blasts at photon warriors and shadow beasts alike, buying civilians precious moments to escape. Meanwhile, Spider-Man swung from skyscraper to skyscraper, webs latching to broken ledges and street lamps alike. He ducked and weaved through falling debris, tossing civilians out of harm's way and snaring enemy combatants in sticky webs. Okay, he muttered under his breath. "Definitely not in the Spider-Man handbook, 2 alien queens at once?" Really? Even in the chaos, Spider-Man's humor never failed, though his eyes betrayed the tension. The ground trembled as Thor descended from the clouds, Mjolnir crackling with lightning. "By Odin's beard!" he shouted, landing in the middle of 42nd Street. He raised his hammer, summoning a storm that lit up the darkened streets and disrupted the shadow beast's movement. Krathina hissed, sending waves of darkness that twisted against the lightning, but Thor's power was relentless, forcing her to retreat just enough to buy time for the civilians to escape. Hulk emerged with a roar that shook the foundations of nearby buildings. He smashed through waves of photon warriors, sending them scattering in every direction. His green fists collided with their crystalline armor, shattering weapons and leaving a trail of chaos behind him. "Hulk smash!" he bellowed, and the streets echoed with the force of his fury. Even the shadow beasts hesitated, sensing the raw, unstoppable power approaching. Amidst the battle, the two queens locked eyes. The golden light of Varela clashed with the black shadows of Krathina in a burst of energy that threw nearby cars into the air. The ground cracked beneath them, and the skyline of Manhattan was illuminated in flashes of light and darkness. Both queens raised their hands simultaneously, releasing waves of energy that collided mid-air, sending tremors through the city. Citizens screamed in terror and awe, watching the titanic struggle unfold above their heads. Spider-Man swung into a particularly dense crowd, webbing up a falling lamppost just in time to prevent it from crushing a family. "I really need a bigger web quota," he muttered. He glanced up and saw Hulk leaping into a group of shadow beasts, Captain Marvel shooting streaks of energy across the skyline, and Thor's hammer cracking the pavement like thunder itself. Okay, maybe I can handle this, he said, determination replacing fear. Captain Marvel zipped past Varela, realizing that the Golden Queen was drawing power from the sun itself, her energy growing with every passing second. If she charges up any more, we're in trouble, Carol muttered. She fired a blast to interrupt Varela's focus, sending her tumbling back just enough to prevent an immediate catastrophe. Thor's storm intensified as he hurled lightning directly at Crathina, the queen retaliating with twisting tendrils of darkness that snaked around skyscrapers. You shall not harm this realm, Thor bellowed. The battle between light and shadow escalated, threatening to tear the city apart. Hulk, sensing the need for a more aggressive approach, grabbed a chunk of debris the size of a small building and hurled it at the shadow beasts. They exploded into pieces upon impact, but more emerged from the shadows, endless waves seemingly materializing from the darkness itself. Hulk's rage only grew, fueling him further. As the chapter closed, Manhattan lay in partial ruin. Streets were cracked, cars overturned, and fires burned where energy blasts had landed. But the citizens, evacuating, surviving, and looking up in awe, sensed the arrival of protectors. Captain Marvel hovered above, Thor's hammer still sparking, Spider-Man swinging across the skyline, and Hulk smashing through enemy ranks. The two queens remained on opposite sides, poised for the next stage of their war. The battle was only beginning, and the heroes knew they were facing an enemy like no other, one that would test every ounce of their strength, courage, and teamwork. In the shadow of ruined skyscrapers and amidst the chaotic streets of Manhattan, one truth became clear. Earth had its defenders, and they would not fall without a fight. Clash of forces. The sky above Manhattan had become a battlefield. The once proud skyline now flickered between searing light and creeping darkness as Varela's photon warriors clashed with Crathina's shadow beasts. The city was split in two, blocks bathed in blazing radiance, others swallowed in oppressive black fog. New Yorkers who hadn't escaped yet huddled in subway stations and behind barricaded doors, praying Earth's heroes could hold the line. From the air, Captain Marvel streaked across the chaos like a comet. Her aura burned brightly as she intercepted a squadron of photon warriors trying to pin Spider-Man on a collapsing building. "Heads up, kid!" she shouted, blasting 3 of them into shards of scattered light. Spider-Man clung to the side of the half-broken skyscraper, panting. "Okay, yeah, thanks for the save. Not that I didn't have it under control. Well, maybe only like 10% under control." He launched himself with a webline, catching a falling civilian before swinging them to safety. Meanwhile, Thor and Crathina stood locked in a duel of thunder and shadow. The god of thunder's lightning bolts cracked through the air, tearing across the skyline, but Crathina's shadow tendrils coiled around them, twisting the bolts into nothingness. Her laughter echoed with malice, vibrating through the concrete jungle. "You fight like the sun, bright but predictable," she sneered, hurling a wave of darkness that rippled across the avenue. Thor planted his feet, Mjolnir raised high. Lightning surged down from storm clouds he had summoned, splitting Crathina's attack in two. "Predictable I," Thor roared, "yet powerful enough to smite queens like thee." The ground trembled as Hulk plowed into a mob of shadow beasts, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Their claws scraped across his skin, but he only grew angrier, grabbing 2 by the legs and smashing them together like rag dolls. Photon warriors tried to intervene, but Hulk ripped a streetlight from the ground and swung it like a bat, sending them flying in pieces of shattered golden armor. In the chaos, Varela descended with the elegance of a celestial empress, her golden wings of light spreading wide. She raised her hand, and a spear of pure solar energy materialized, crackling with power. "Earth's defenders," she declared, her voice resonant and commanding. "You waste your strength. Surrender this planet's energy and live under my rule, or perish in defiance." Hulk roared in response, smashing a crater into the asphalt with his fists. Spider-Man muttered, "Yeah, I don't think she's much of a negotiator." Captain Marvel darted forward, fists glowing. "Funny thing about us, Virella, we don't surrender." She slammed into the queen mid-sentence, sending her flying into a high-rise. Glass shattered, raining down onto the street as Virella erupted back out of the rubble, fury in her glowing eyes. The two queens turned their armies loose. Photon warriors unleashed blinding beams that melted steel, while shadow beasts leapt across walls and rooftops like living nightmares. The streets became a storm of fire, light, and shadow. Civilians screamed as cars exploded, buildings cracked, and the Earth's mightiest heroes tried desperately to push back the tide. Thor landed beside Spider-Man, lightning coursing through Mjolnir. "Young arachnid, thou art swift, but even swifter foes approach." "Yeah, no kidding," Spider-Man replied, webbing two photon warriors together before leaping clear of an energy blast. "Can we, tag team this? I'll handle crowd control, you handle the gods and queens thing." "Aye." Thor grinned, swinging Mjolnir in a glowing arc before hurling it into a horde of shadow beasts, obliterating them in a thunderous explosion. Hulk barreled down the street, knocking enemies aside like bowling pins. Yet no matter how many he crushed, more poured in. He growled in frustration, grabbing one shadow beast and tearing it in half before bellowing, "Too many!" Spider-Man swung overhead, shooting webs rapidly. "Working on thinning the crowd, big guy." He yanked an entire street's worth of lamp-posts together with reinforced webs, trapping dozens of beasts in a tangled cage. Okay, that's one win for Team Spider. Up above, Captain Marvel and Virella clashed in a dazzling aerial duel. Fists met with shockwaves, every strike lighting up the sky like miniature suns. Carol's energy blasts collided with Virella's radiant spear, creating explosions that rattled windows for blocks. "You cannot outshine the sun itself," Virella shouted, releasing a flare that blinded everyone below. Carol grit her teeth, powering through the light. "Good thing I don't need to. I just need to knock it out of the sky." She absorbed the energy blast into her body, her aura blazing brighter, then redirected it back in a devastating punch that sent Virella crashing into the pavement. Meanwhile, Krathina expanded her influence, shadows creeping over skyscrapers until entire streets disappeared into black voids. Her beasts grew larger, feeding on fear and panic. She extended her clawed hand, summoning a storm of shadow spears that rained down across the city. Thor raised Mjolnir high, summoning lightning to intercept the barrage. He braced himself, but even the god of thunder staggered as the storm of darkness pressed against him. "By the 9 realms, she seeks to drown this city in night eternal." Hulk leapt to his side, swatting aside shadow spears with his fists. "Hulk no like dark," he bellowed, charging at Krathina herself. She hissed, shadows twisting into a whip that cracked against Hulk's chest, sending him smashing through a building. For a moment, silence fell as dust and debris clouded the street. Then Hulk emerged, bleeding but angrier than ever. He tore a chunk of concrete from the rubble and hurled it at Krathina, roaring with primal fury. The impact staggered her just enough for Thor's lightning to blast her backward. The tide of battle wavered, the two queens momentarily checked by Earth's mightiest defenders. Yet both still stood, their armies vast, their power growing. From the rooftop, Spider-Man landed beside Captain Marvel, chest heaving from exhaustion. "So, quick question. Do we have an actual plan, or are we just doing the whole punch-until-it-works thing?" Carol looked around at the destruction, then at the endless armies pouring in. Her jaw tightened. Punching isn't going to cut it. These queens aren't just commanders, they're anchors. Their armies are tied directly to them. Take out the queens, the armies fall. Thor approached, his armor scorched but his spirit unbroken. "Then our course is clear. We break their hold by breaking their crowns." Hulk cracked his knuckles, grinning savagely. "Hulk smash queens." Spider-Man groaned. Cool. Just casually take down 2 cosmic god queens while saving New York. Yeah, no pressure. Captain Marvel clenched her fists, eyes blazing with determination. Then it's settled. We split up, we hit hard, and we don't stop until both queens fall. Earth isn't theirs to claim. The heroes stood together, the battlefield raging around them. Virella rose from the rubble, golden light pulsing with renewed fury, while Crathina's shadows coiled tighter, swallowing blocks of the city whole. The clash had only just begun, and the fate of Earth teetered on the edge of light and shadow. Strategy and sacrifice. The battlefield raged like a storm with no end. New York streets, once filled with morning traffic and honking horns, were now a wasteland of shattered concrete, burning vehicles, and alien wreckage. Above it all, the 2 queens, Virella and Crathina, stood untouchable, commanding their endless legions with terrifying precision. For every beast Hulk crushed, for every warrior Spider-Man ensnared, another wave took their place. The air smelled of ozone and ash, light and shadow colliding in every direction. Humanity's defenders were holding on, but only just. Perched on a broken rooftop, Spider-Man caught his breath, sweat dripping beneath his torn mask. His ears buzzed with the aftermath of explosions. He scanned the chaos, eyes darting across the battlefield, when he noticed something strange. Each time Crathina shrieked to summon new beasts, the creatures glowed faintly around their chests, like a pulsing core. And when Virella shouted commands, her warrior's armor flickered, tethered by threads of golden energy that seemed to flow back to her. His eyes widened. Oh, wait a second. They're not just leading the armies, they are the armies. Spider-Man pressed his comms. Guys, I think I figured it out. The soldiers, the monsters, they're extensions of the queens. Take out the queens, their armies go down with them. Static crackled, then Captain Marvel's voice came through. That makes sense. Cut off the head, the body falls. Thor landed beside Spider-Man, Mjolnir sparking. His cape was torn, his cheek bleeding, but his eyes still burned with lightning. A wise observation, young warrior. The question remains, how do we strike them down when their power rivals the stars themselves? Down below, Hulk smashed through a swarm of beasts, then leapt onto a wrecked bus. Hulk smash both. Easy plan. Not easy, Spider-Man muttered, but maybe possible. His mind raced. Virella draws from the sun. Crathina draws from shadows. They're opposites. If we pit their powers against each other, maybe we can destabilize both. Captain Marvel soared down, landing with a thud. Energy crackled around her fists, her hair glowing like fire. Then we split into 2 teams. Thor, Hulk, you keep Crathina busy. Spider-Man, you're with me against Virella. We overwhelm them, force them into each other's path. Their energy collides, cancels out, and we finish the job. Thor nodded. A sound plan, though fraught with peril. Very well. Hulk and I shall tame the darkness. Hulk grinned savagely. Hulk smash Shadow Lady. Spider-Man raised a shaky hand. Quick question. If this fails, what's plan B? Carol's eyes narrowed, determination etched on her face. There is no plan B. The teams split. Thor and Hulk charged into Crathina's abyss, shadows thickening around them like a living storm. The Queen raised her clawed hands, her voice echoing like a death knell. You seek to challenge the night itself? You will drown in my darkness. Hulk roared and leapt, fists first, straight at her. Crathina swatted him from the air with a tendril of black energy, smashing him into the side of a building. Thor seized the opening, summoning lightning from the heavens, striking her with bolts so bright they pierced the shroud of darkness. For a moment, the night peeled back, revealing the trembling city beneath. But Crathina laughed, her form flickering between shadow and flesh. Thunder cannot banish what was born in void. She retaliated, wrapping Thor in a cocoon of shadows, constricting around his chest. "Thor!" Hulk roared, tearing himself from the rubble. He tore the shadows apart with his bare hands, freeing the god of thunder. Side by side, they pressed on, their combined fury keeping the darkness at bay. Across the city, Captain Marvel and Spider-Man ascended toward Varela, who floated above the skyline like a radiant goddess. Her golden spear pulsed with solar fire, her wings casting light so bright the asphalt beneath her sizzled. "You insects," she declared, her voice filled with regal disdain. "You resist the gift of my dominion. Your planet will fuel the birth of my new star." Carol shot forward at supersonic speed, colliding with Varela in a thunderous shockwave. The two traded blows, fists colliding like meteor strikes, each clash rippling across the skyline. Spider-Man, meanwhile, swung in circles around her photon warriors, shooting webs into their joints and ripping their armor apart. "Yeah, okay, note to self, fighting crystal soldiers is not in my lease agreement," he muttered, flipping onto a ledge. His web shooters clicked empty. "Seriously? Out of fluid? Worst timing ever." Varela extended her spear, summoning a solar flare that spiraled toward the city. Carol blocked it with her body, absorbing the energy until her skin glowed white-hot. She gritted her teeth, veins of light tracing across her arms. "If you think Earth's just fuel, you don't know Earth." She redirected the flare back, slamming it into Varela with devastating force. For the first time, the Queen staggered. Spider-Man seized the moment, launching himself from the building and firing his last reserve of webbing at her spear. He yanked it sideways, just enough to throw off her balance. "Hey, Shiny! Ever heard of sharing the sun?" Varela's eyes burned with fury. She released a pulse of golden energy that flung Spider-Man back, his body slamming into a billboard. Pain shot through his ribs, but he forced himself up, whispering, "Come on, Parker! Not now! Don't quit now!" Back in the shadows, Thor and Hulk pushed Krathina to her limits. Each blow of Mjolnir lit the darkness, each smash of Hulk shattered her beasts. But Krathina grew larger, her body dissolving into a monstrous silhouette that blotted out the stars. "You cannot fight eternity," she roared. Thor raised Mjolnir high, lightning coursing through his veins. "Then let eternity feel the fury of Asgard." He hurled the hammer into Krathina's chest, splitting her form in two. Hulk followed up with a colossal leap, smashing the ground so hard shockwaves rippled through her body of shadows. For the first time, Krathina faltered. Her shriek rattled the skyscrapers. The queens, now weakened, drifted closer to each other, Varela burning, Krathina writhing. Their armies thinned, their control flickering. Spider-Man's voice crackled through the comms. "This is it. Bring them together. Make them hit each other." Captain Marvel grabbed Varela, dragging her through the air toward Krathina. The Golden Queen struggled, wings blazing, but Carol's strength held her tight. On the other side, Thor and Hulk hurled Krathina upward with raw might. For one breathless moment, the two cosmic monarchs locked eyes as they collided mid-air. Light and shadow clashed, a blinding explosion tearing across the sky. Their armies screamed and disintegrated into dust, vanishing like smoke. The shockwave ripped through Manhattan, shattering windows, toppling weakened buildings, and throwing the heroes across the streets. Silence followed. Dust settled. The queens staggered, their powers fractured. Varela's golden armor cracked, light leaking uncontrollably. Krathina's shadow form flickered, her tendrils fading. But the cost was heavy. Hulk lay battered, coughing blood yet forcing himself upright. Thor knelt, Mjolnir trembling in his grip, his armor scorched. Captain Marvel floated weakly, her glow dimmed from overuse. And Spider-Man, mask torn, struggled to rise with broken ribs. They had succeeded, but sacrifice was etched in every wound, every scar, every gasp for breath. Above them, the queens, though broken, were not yet finished. Their eyes still burned with rage. One last clash remained. Victory and aftermath. The night over Manhattan was no longer a sky, it was a battlefield tapestry, streaked with light and shadow, thunder and flame. Towers stood jagged and broken, neon signs flickered weakly, and streets ran with the glow of alien tech. Civilians huddled in shelters of debris, their terrified eyes peering out toward the titanic figures locked in combat. Above them all, the battle reached its crescendo. Captain Marvel darted across the skies like a living meteor, her body wreathed in cosmic fire. Each strike she launched against Varela burned with the fury of a star, but the alien queen's radiant shield flared back, blinding and indomitable. Varela laughed, a sound that rang like cracked crystal, as her photon blades clashed with Carol's energy fists, sending shockwaves through the skyline. Below, Thor battled Krathina in a clash of god and shadow. Lightning danced violently around him, every swing of Mjolnir erupting in thunderous detonations. But Krathina moved like living darkness, her form slipping between tendrils of night, each strike of her shadow spear aimed for Thor's heart. "You cannot banish the void, thunder god," she hissed, her voice echoing with 1,000 whispers. Thor spat blood, his hair matted with soot, but his eyes blazed. "Then the void shall learn to fear the storm." He summoned a column of lightning so vast it split the clouds in half, bathing the battlefield in daylight for an instant. On the ground, Hulk bore the weight of sacrifice. He was no longer fighting for victory, he was fighting to save lives. With his massive hands braced against the remains of a collapsing skyscraper, he held the structure long enough for dozens of civilians to escape the death trap. His roar echoed, primal and furious, veins bulging as his muscles strained. Shadow beasts swarmed his legs, clawing and biting, but Hulk ignored the pain. "Go!" he bellowed to the terrified survivors, and they ran into the night, free because of him. And then there was Spider-Man. Amid this chaos, he wasn't the strongest or the loudest. But he was the one who moved unseen, weaving webs through broken girders and burning cars, connecting fragments of the city into a fragile safety net. He swung toward the alien energy cores, two pulsing constructs of otherworldly design, hidden in the ruins, sustaining the Queen's armies. With shaking hands and a racing heart, Peter Parker whispered to himself, "Okay, Spidey. Time to save the whole neighborhood." The plan was desperate. The heroes had realized in Chapter 3 that the only way to end the war was to sever the Queen's connection to their legions. Without their armies, Varela and Krathina would lose their grip on Earth. But the cores were heavily guarded, each protected by waves of alien troops and wrapped in volatile energy fields. Captain Marvel broke first through Varela's defenses, blasting a hole in the Golden Army's formation. "Now, Spider-Man!" she shouted, hurling photon energy into the sky to distract Varela. Peter swung through the breach, his webs sparking as they touched the unstable energy field. Sweat drenched his mask. He didn't know if his plan would work, but he had to try. At the same moment, Thor locked eyes with Hulk. The god and the beast exchanged no words, only understanding. Hulk hurled a massive chunk of broken steel toward Krathina's core, smashing apart its protective shell. Thor raised Mjolnir high, lightning channeling into the exposed machinery. He brought the hammer down, a thunderous strike that shattered the core into a storm of sparks and dark fire. Krathina screamed, a shriek that rattled glass across the city. Her shadow beasts dissolved instantly into smoke, their claws and fangs vanishing mid-attack. Hulk fell to his knees, exhausted, but alive. Above, Spider-Man clung to Varela's core, his webs binding its circuits tighter and tighter until the unstable energies surged out of control. "This is either gonna work, or blow me to Jersey," he muttered. He slammed a final web cartridge into the pulsing heart of the device. The feedback roared like a cannon. Captain Marvel swooped in at the last second, grabbing Peter and hurling him clear as the core erupted in a blinding golden explosion. Varela shrieked as her radiant warriors blinked out of existence, their glowing forms shattering into fragments of starlight before dissipating into the air. For the first time, The two alien queens staggered. Their armies gone, their strength weakened, their ambitions slipping through their fingers. They looked at the heroes who now stood united before them, Thor with lightning still crackling around his frame, Hulk bloodied but unbroken, Spider-Man bruised but grinning through the pain, and Captain Marvel blazing like the fury of a sun. "This world is not yours," Thor declared, voice booming across the ruined city. The queens hissed, their forms flickering between realms, their eyes burning with hatred. But they knew the battle was lost. With a final curse upon Earth's defenders, Varela and Krathina vanished into the void, their retreat tearing rifts of light and shadow across the sky before sealing shut. Silence fell over Manhattan. The fires still burned, the buildings still smoldered, but the armies were gone. The war was over. Civilians emerged from hiding, staring in awe at the battered heroes. A child clutched Spider-Man's arm, whispering, "You saved us." Peter, still trembling, managed a quiet, "Guess that makes me your friendly neighborhood galactic defender." Thor leaned on Mjolnir, breathing heavily, but a smile tugged at his lips. "A good fight," he muttered. Hulk, collapsing into rubble, grunted in reply, "Hulk, tired." Captain Marvel soared upward, surveying the sky. Though the queens were gone, she knew their kind would return one day. She descended slowly, her glow dimming, and looked at the others. "We won," she said, though her tone carried both relief and warning. Spider-Man broke the tension with a half-joke, half-truth. "Yeah, but who's paying for all this property damage?" Laughter, brief but genuine, rippled through the weary heroes. As dawn broke, its first golden rays cutting through smoke and ruin, Manhattan stood scarred but standing. The heroes gathered amid the wreckage, for silhouettes against a rising sun. They had protected Earth not just with power, but with sacrifice, courage, and unity. For now, humanity was safe. But somewhere beyond the stars, the queens of the cosmos were plotting their return.